Hi, everybody. Welcome back to From the Cheap Seats. I'm your host, Charlie Jimenez. And in the NBA, we see great basketball players. They always have an expiration date with their athleticism. Russell Westbrook, obviously, although he's having a little bit of a resurgence. But now we see the greatest shooter ever and possibly the greatest basketball player of all time age like fine wine. What do you think about Curry and LeBron? They're aging and like being able to maintain their peak.
Yeah, at a certain level, I think when you played in the NBA long enough, you kind of just get a feel for it. And I think their IQs are some of the best in the game. And that really comes into play in their longevity and how they're able to dominate the game at their age. For Curry, I mean, age will slow him down a little, athleticism going down, but his shooting will stay consistent. It's still the same amount of space he needs to get off a shot as when he was 20, when he's his age right now, and he can get up a shot just as fast as he could. For LeBron, it's really that IQ coming into play and his physicalness. He's not that same high jumping, high flyer guy that we saw back in his first season in Cleveland, but that IQ and the passing and just being able to read defenses is really what allows him to dominate at the age that he is. So
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I will say this though, everybody's probably going to question why I don't have Kevin Durant on here because that's originally been the big three: Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, and LeBron. Turns out they had the 2v1 LeBron anyway. But recently, KD and the Suns, despite having Devin Booker, have been going downhill pretty fast this week. They've been 0-3, and they've gotten blown out by 10 points each time. And the thing with me is, I don't think that's I would put Kevin Durant up there if he had a winning record, but I think right now it's really, and this is a Suns issue, the Bradley Beal trade hurt them because I don't think Bradley Beal's that good anymore. But other than that, Kevin Durant's doing great. With Steph Curry, I knew this was going to happen. We've always said, and this is something the coaches tell their kids every time, the more you shoot, the better you get. This year, we've seen Curry put up so many like big shots. I don't know if you saw up against, I think it was the Magic. He just did turnaround logo three pointer.
yeah, he had one against right over Derek Lively at the beginning of the season as well, if you remember that.
Oh yeah, the game clincher.
Yeah, that was a hard one to watch, but
Yeah, no, that's just proof that any shooter can survive that long. With LeBron James, it used to be relying on his athleticism, right? We saw him when he got swept by the Spurs in his first finals back in 2007. That really was like inside scoring, and when Dwight Howard was able to overpower him with the Magic and as they advanced to the finals in 2010. But his game's evolved so much now. You see him passing the ball a lot more, and that he's got another player that's basically like him on offense. It's like really useful. Definitely can see the Lakers going a long way, but
but
it's a long way until we see the NBA finals. Right now, we got to focus on what's in front of us with March Madness. What do you think about the Final Four matchups we have with Duke and Houston and Florida and Auburn, Charles?
yeah, I have Duke over Houston. It's kind of crazy to me that all the ones he's got in. You don't really see that happening. I think what was it, 2013? Correct me if I'm wrong. Somewhere around that time when all the ones he's made it. I have Duke over Houston, and then I have Auburn over Florida. I think that Duke is just a way. No one's gonna beat Duke. I have them winning it all. We'll see if I'm wrong, but I just don't really see anyone beating Duke's explosive offense. And then also they are a defensive challenge, and I just don't see, Houston, even with their 3-point shooting and high octane offense, doing much against Duke. But then Auburn, I feel like Janai Broom with, the tenure that he has, I see him coming out on top, with any matchup they throw at him. Florida's good, but I think it comes down to the big man battle, and I feel like Auburn's gonna win that.
So for me, I think about this matchup with Houston and Duke. We're going to get to that in a bit. But right now, I want to focus on the Florida versus Auburn matchup. I think it's insane to see the star players like Walter Clayton Jr. and Janai Broom, and everybody's disappointed that we did have one seeds make the Final Four. But y'all, these are good games. You're not going to see a team like St. Peter's get blown out by North Carolina or San Diego State. Like, these are legit the best teams in the NCAA, and we get to see them duke it out. And I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is the most excited I've been for a Final Four in a long time, just because it's going to be close. Close matchups throughout the board. All one seeds. I don't really see a big blowout, so I think it'll be. I'm just excited as you are.
Yeah, totally. And what I think is going to happen with that Auburn Florida matchup, and hear me out on this, I think we're going to see Florida they're gonna jump out. And before I picked Auburn to win the national championship, if you remember, but I think Florida is gonna jump out to a 21-13 lead. They're gonna try and extend. And by half, you're gonna see it they're probably gonna be in like the high 30s, and Auburn's probably gonna be in the high 20s, could be like 39-27 or something like that. But I think Auburn, their defense, they're gonna make adjustments. Bruce Pearl's gonna work his magic. And I think Chani Broom's gonna take over and finally catch them up. And by the end, I think this is gonna be a score. You're gonna see it. I think it'll be. I have Florida winning 67-62 because I think Auburn's going to take control later in the fourth quarter. But then I think Florida's just going to get red hot. They're going to go on a run like they did against Texas Tech, and they're going to finish them off. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean Walter Clayton Jr. He's a tough shot maker. He comes in clutch. I do think that his game where he kind of took over in that fourth quarter, made a couple tough shots. I don't really see him having a game like that again. Like, yes, I think he'll make some shots, but a full takeover like he did, I don't really see it happening. Prove me wrong. He's a great player, but I just think Auburn has the edge in this one. But I mean, we'll find out soon, I guess.
Totally. But before we talk about maybe Duke and Houston, we got a few things to do. First, we got our first weekly awards, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll start us off with the Dumpster Fire of the Week award. This award goes to any moment or team or player that was just an absolute disaster this week or game. And the game I'm going to talk about is the Wolves versus Pistons last Sunday. There are 5 NBA players suspended, and that there were so many comparisons drawn to Malice at the Palace. Only the real basketball fans get that. And I think that was odd. Next up, we have the Charles Campbell One and Done Award.
Yeah, this is presented by Malachi Flynn, but this goes to Brandon Podziemski. I can't say his last name, but he had a big game last night against the Lakers, but it's a one and done. Ain't ever happened. Love him, but he ain't pulling that off again. So that's my Malachi Flynn one and done.
Okay, I totally agree with that. Now, seat jumper game of the week goes to Wolves versus Nuggets. Second overtime, I believe. 140-139 win for the Wolves. Jokic had a 60-point triple-double. I know everybody's going off about that, but hey, Luka had a 60-point triple-double with 20 rebounds, I believe, at one point, and he didn't do it in overtime. Just saying. And then my final award from the couch MVP, I have Steph Curry. Everybody is going to probably say Giannis or Jokic should have gotten it this week. I picked Steph because they went 3-1 this week, the Warriors did. And in one game, he sank 12 threes, his second time this year, and scored 52 points against the Grizzlies. He had clutch 3 and a close 123-116 victory over the Lakers, where he and LeBron and what was it? Austin Reeves were duking it out for the final few minutes. And honestly, the Nuggets went 3-3 this week. They had a literally 50-50 week. So Steph was definitely the MVP for this week. And moving on to our next section, the Charles crossover.
Charles crossover. That was a dumpster fire. They're trying to bring those bad boy Pistons. I kind of like it. All right, this is Charles's crossover, and this one I'm comparing Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham. I want to hear your thoughts in a second, but okay, Luka Doncic, his pace that he goes with, his sudden stops, sudden movements, it's like a fast twitch, but it's it's a lot slower than you think. But it's that sudden the way he can manipulate the defense with that small euro and then use his body to get that little floater. I was watching Cade Cunningham the other day, and I kind of stole this from a post that I saw, but it got me thinking. But Cade Cunningham does the exact same thing. The way he's not rushed. He plays at his own pace. He manipulates his body to force the defender into a dead zone, and he can just kind of rise over and take that tough contested floater / mid-range that he's going to knock down at a high rate. And I was looking, and that's exactly what Luka forces more threes. I think Cade Cunningham kind of plays at he doesn't really force that many shots, kind of plays at his own team's pace. But when you just look at the rate and speed that they play, I saw a direct connection. And so I want to hear your thoughts on that. But
so I've always thought of Cade Cunningham as a taller version of Chris Paul, and the fact that he has a dominant paint presence and can shoot threes when needed. But I do like the comparison. I will say this though, I like the comparison more so now that Luka's lost like what is it, 50 pounds or something ridiculous. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I could totally see it. I know they both have that fake out move in the paint where they can go up and then just the hook under. I always found Luka doing that absurd, and that's how he got around Wemby. But good comparison, Charles. Good comparison. You got anything you want to say about that?
No, I mean, I think that's all.
All right, next up we have our segment, and this was a recent one called Tactical Timeout, where we discuss the X's and O's of anything from basketball to football, maybe even baseball too, once we get into it. Right now we're going to talk March Madness. So I mentioned that I was going to get to the Houston Duke matchup in a little bit. This is it. So here's the big question here. How is Houston's famous defense going to guard the high-powered Duke offense? And there are a few things we need to discuss first. So Houston runs something that is called a fly-by defense. So Charles, you've played basketball before, right? You remember being the point guard. How often were you forced into traps?
Yeah, coming off a high screen at the wing. My coach preached, a high trap. If I'm coming up to guard, he wants me high. So I'm literally like, once that ball handoff comes, that's a trap. And like, you have to be up on it. You have to hands up, do not foul. And so I think that's going to come into play. You got to get the ball, out of Concanoople and Cooper Flag. You have to make the other players make a play. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot of those. Whether I was playing defense or I was on offense, you have to.
What about offense? How did you deal with it on offense?
Yeah. You got to take a dribble back, little fake high, and then go low and pass that ball. And usually your center is going to be playing just kind of a float in the open section, and then it's just a little dump down, and then that's up to the center to kind of take that drive and make the right pass. And if the lane's open, take that all the way. But a good Houston's a defensive minded team, and they're going to cut it off, and so that center's going to have to make the right pass.
So what Houston does is they do the trap, right? Like right as you're saying, right? Where the point guard gets the ball off the handoff in the big. But what they do is as soon as that happens, they have the big man come out from the paint, and they have a fast big man on defense, and he rushes. It's like blitzing the dribbler, and they force him toward the logo. And the thing with Houston is they're such a fast-paced defense that you can't, as a point guard, you can't just throw it over top because somebody's got to come pick it off.
Yeah, you got to give that pump fake high and then go low, or you can dribble out of it, give a little contact with your shoulder going right or left, and then take that dribble back, and then you can pass over the top.
Right, but the thing that Houston does well is they commit. They don't hold back. They're trying to force you into a backcourt violation.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal. And so with Duke, I think the best thing to do here would be have Colin Canoople take out the ball. But instead of Cooper Flag, like setting up the screen, I'd say do a fake and then do just like pick and roll, simple pick and roll. Or the Minnesota Timberwolves had a similar defense last year because it worked on Jamal Murray and they kept him scoring low. Then Denver figured it out. And they tried to use it on the Mavericks, but with Luka and Kyrie and Jason Kidd, who's I think is one of the best coaches in the NBA.
I agree.
What they did is they made an adjustment where they had Luka, they had a fake pick, and Luka just isoed the paint. And then they have Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively come up and they toss up a lob ball.
Yeah.
I think that's what Duke needs to do a lot with Cooper Flag and Hiawatha because oh no, Malawach. Malawach is a good lob threat. I saw him against Bama, crushed them.
He reminds me a lot of Derek Lively back at the Duke days.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think if they could go ahead and do that, they could tear apart Houston from the inside and force Houston to collapse inside the paint and drop coverage. And while doing that, they could maybe put Tyrese Proctor. I think he's the better three-point threat than Con Canoople. No offense toward Con Canoople. I think he did a fantastic
No, I
job
agree.
last game.
I agree with you.
And I think if they did that, they could beat Houston's defense. But it's all going to come down to what Cooper Flag can do as a shooter, not just a dunk guy, as a shooter.
Yeah.
So that's the key matchup there. Next segment we're going to go to, hot list. So we've seen a lot of NBA teams in hot streaks and going cold. Recently, we've seen the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had a hot start. And like they've hit 61 wins recently. Last time they did that was with LeBron. So do you think they're on a hot streak right now or they're just that good?
Yeah. And this is the Cavs, right? Yeah. No, at the beginning of the season, I thought it might have been a fluke. I was kind of hesitant. I didn't really truly believe in them. But at this point in the season, and the way they're playing and the consistency that they're playing with, and it's such great chemistry, between Garland and Mitchell and, your two bigs in Allen and Mobley. But I'm 100% behind them. I think they could take out the Celtics, go to the finals, and play the Thunder potentially. But yeah, I don't think it's a hot streak. I think this is for real. I think this is the real
I
deal.
think that the Celtics is a little bit of a stretch considering how talented they are on offense, and once they get healthy, I think it's theirs to lose in the East. Don't get me wrong, Cleveland did a fantastic job. What they've accomplished this season is nothing short of incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think the Celtics have the ability to tear any team apart on defense and on offense. So we'll wait to see how that works out. Another team that I think is not. I think this team's legit. Now, I thought they were on a hot streak. I thought last year carried into this year, and it was really just they were going to start off hot and then they were going to collapse. But seriously, OKC has it going on right now. I think they're incredible. I think they are the team to beat in the Western Conference. So mark my words, I think they will go to the NBA championship.
I'm 100% behind that. I don't see another team, coming out and topping the Thunder. They're such a deep team, defensive minded, but they can put up points in a flurry. I just can't see a way around them. We're just gonna roll. Sounds good.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'd honestly say right now, the team that is on hot streak to me is the Wolves. The Wolves have barely survived a lot of the past few games, and really tip the cap to Anthony Edwards for being able to keep them afloat. I don't think Julius Randle is as good as he once was.
No.
And I honestly think that all the supporting cast around him, don't get me wrong, I hate Mike Conley, and I still hate Mike Conley. But he's been a good player these past few years, but this year he's honestly kind of started to fall down the toilet. I think Rudy Gobert as a defensive player has become a liability. Ever since teams, what Dallas also did last year, and this ticked me off because I had the Wolves going to the finals against the Celtics, they made an adjustment to where they forced Gobert on Luka so many times, and that's what got Luka a lot of shots. If you remember, Game 2,
Yeah.
Luka had the ball with a few seconds left. They switched it off to Gobert, and then Luka made that game-winning shot.
Yeah.
Something your team's never going to feel again.
Hey, AD, last game.
Anyway, I think that the Wolves are definitely on a hot streak right now. I think they're going to be first-round exit. A team that I'm saying is not on a hot streak right now. Actually, these two teams are definitely not on a hot streak. The Warriors and Lakers are back. Like, not as good as they've been in the past, but they're definitely back. All the trades they made, Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, Luka Doncic to the Warriors. It's this storybook right here. We're seeing like two legendary franchises.
Hey, if we get a playoff matchup between the Warriors and Lakers, count my words, that's going to be the most like cinematic story.
The epic end to
Yes.
epic,
Oh my
storied
goodness.
rivalry with LeBron and Steph. Heck, we might even.
That would be the most hyped up I would ever be about a NBA matchup this year.
You know what? I'm gonna make a deal here. If they go to Game 7, if that series is a thing and they go to Game 7, we will probably do a reaction video on that.
Let's do
Just
it.
to see how the things go. But right now, we're gonna move on to our next final session, the legendary retro rewind. So Charles has decided to pick the Warriors Rockets 2017-2018 Western Conference Finals Game 7. So let's set the stage real quick about both teams. So the Warriors finished second in the Western Conference with a record of 58-24, their fifth most wins in franchise history. The Golden State set the NBA record for 16 consecutive home wins in the playoffs, surpassing the 91 Bulls. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson were named to the All-Star game. The first time in NBA history that a team has had 4 All-Stars in consecutive seasons, and just the 9th time in NBA history a single team has had 4 players in the All-Star game. Curry was named captain, being the leading vote getter for the Western Conference. The Warriors ended the regular season with a slew of injuries to all 4 of their All-Stars, including MCL strain for Steph Curry, that kept them out for 6 weeks, and lost 10 of their last 17 games. For the first time since 2013-2014 season, they did not clinch first place for the home court advantage in the playoffs and failed to win 60 games for the first time under Steve Kerr. And next up, we got the Rockets. The Rockets acquired star point guard Chris Paul from the Los Angeles Clippers due to a multitude of trades after the 2017 NBA draft, as well as for the team's first under current owner Tillman Fertitta. The Rockets also broke their franchise record for most wins this season with their 59th win against the New Orleans Pelicans. eventually totaling 65 wins on the season with a loss by the Warriors. On March 29th, the Rockets clinched the number one seed for the first time in franchise history. Shooting guard James Harden won MVP and the scoring title. And let's get to the game. So going into this game, we saw the Rockets had a 3-2 lead in the series. They had the best basketball team probably ever on the ropes. And by halftime, they had an 11-point lead in Game 7. But they crumbled in the second and missed 27 consecutive three-pointers. Kevin Durant led the Warriors with 34 points and led them to a 192 victory to advance to their fourth conference finals. What do you think of that? Because there's so many memes that were made about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that caught my eye when I went back and watched the highlights was how loud that stadium was. You talk about the like playoff loud. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. The Houston Rockets stadium was packed, and it was like I would had loved to have been there. But yeah, I think it comes down to the 27 consecutive 3-point misses. That's just embarrassing. There's no words. There's no excuses for 27 consecutive misses, especially for the offensively loaded team that they were, especially with James Harden, Eric Gordon, and you got
PJ Tucker.
Shooters like PJ Tucker, on the wing.
Here's the thing too. They also had prime Clint Capella.
Prime Clint Capella was a dog. I love Clint Capella.
That was incredible. There was at one point he got 2 consecutive lobs from Harden and he just threw it down. Harden was, I don't know if people remember this, Harden was just straight up lobbing from the 3-point line at that point. And then you had Chris Paul who did run the Lob City Clippers.
Yeah.
What many people don't realize though, and the Warriors figured this out come playoff time, and Chris Paul and JJ Redick talked about this at one point. So whenever they were taking the ball out on the right side of the paint, it would always be Harden. And then they'd have a high pick and roll by Eric Gordon. And that would also always set up 3-point shot opportunities. And then if they came on the left, Chris Paul would take it. So that way they could because they knew both players were obviously high IQ basketball players.
Yeah, but you want them going at their dominant hand, right? Yeah.
And so the thing that the Warriors figured out is they were like, why are we giving Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker such wide open threes? They're like, okay, we know James Harden can ISO ball against basically any player in the NBA because this is his peak, right?
Yeah, this is prime James Harden.
And they were like, okay, so instead of putting Draymond Green on James Harden being idiots, we're going to let Draymond Green, instead of being a primary defender in the paint, be a help defender. And that's what caused them to just throw the Rockets off their game and make them miss so many 3-pointers. Heck, I remember I was laughing when I found out this happened. Yeah, but let's rate the game. So what name are we going to give it, Charles? I have an idea what you're going to say.
Ooh, a good name. I don't know. You seems like you got a name in your mind. Tell me.
27 consecutive missed threes. I mean, I don't know why you missed 27 consecutive threes against the best 3-point shooting team in NBA history.
Yeah.
I want to think of a good name that plays to the Warriors being a great 3-point shooting team. Oh, wait, I got one.
Tell me.
Most sank and most miss. So, for those of you who don't know, the Rockets broke the single season 3-point record the Warriors set back in 2015-16. And they did so at a lower percentage, but they sank the most in NBA history in the season. I think it was over 1,200. And in this game, they missed the most consecutive threes ever in a single playoff game. Best time to do it, right?
The sink and the sank.
The sink and the sank. Oh, hold on. That's it. So, entertainment-wise, I'm going to rate this. I'm going to give it 8.4. What about you, Charles?
Yeah, I mean, with, game 7, conference finals, 8.5.
Okay.
If it was a closer game, within 3, I probably would have put it, above a 9, but.
Yeah. So star power, this is loaded. We have multiple Hall of Famers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give this a 9.
Yeah, I'm going with easy 9.5. Durant, Steph Curry, Clay, Draymond, James Harden, and then just the supporting cast around both teams. They're not Hall of Famers, but man, they're a great squad. So easy 9.5.
I'd agree. Legacy, I'm going to give this an 8.
Legacy, this was, if they won the Warriors won the game, made it to their 4th consecutive finals in I mean, I don't know where, the Warriors would have been without winning this game. And so I think legacy is a 8.5.
Okay, then. So rewatchability. I'm gonna be honest with you on this one. I don't like watching a team get so hot and then go.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give this a 6.5.
Yeah, I was going to say a 6. Just, it wasn't like a nail biter within the last 2 minutes. The Warriors, had the lead, early in the fourth. And so I think it's a 6 for me.
Can you take out your phone real quick and do a few calculations?
Got you. Okay.
So you need to add up 8.4 and 8.5. Actually, we're just gonna put 8.45, 9 and 9.5 real quick.
9.25.
Then 8 and 8.5.
8.25.
8.25, I figured. And then 6.5 and 6. That's probably just gonna be 6.25.
Yeah.
So now I need you to add 6.25 plus 8.25.
Okay, wait. 6.25 plus
8.25 plus 9.25
oh wait. 8.25
plus 8.45. And then divide that by. Okay, so we have given this game an overall score of 8.1. This ranks third on our favorite games that we've ever watched. So this is Charlie Jimenez from the Cheap Seats, and this is
Charles Campbell.
and we'll see you next time. Tune in.